Did you know I was a singer?
Oh, not again.
I'm not going to do that. Sorry.
Absolutely. Now you have to.
No, I was going to say dreaming, you know. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Budget Banking Podcast. And I'm Chris.
I'm shocked you said it was morning. I'm not over
It's
it.
actually afternoon. I said
morning
you know
for
what?
people like me, but
It's actually
not
like
you.
probably like late afternoon because I'm an early riser. You know, one of the big things between you and I is
I did not
I
get
get up super
situated
easy,
super
and you
early.
get not later, but like comparatively. I go to bed early. You stay up late. I get up early. You sleep in a little bit more.
yeah,
than I
you're
do.
like sleeping on the couch by 8 o'clock.
Oh, come on, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Welcome to the show. For those of you watching my video,
Welcome.
you can see that Beck decided to wear a poncho to work today.
I know. I like it.
When you do that, you look like Batman.
I know. It's like I can look at my oh my gosh.
She's looking
I know,
at
I said I
herself
was
in the monitor off.
Well,
off,
like I said,
off camera.
It,
Off-
it was quite funny. I look like a bat.
I know. So I said you look like Batman. Actually, but you know, like the new Batman, where there's like all the impersonators, and there's like all these little like freelance Batmans in the city, and Batman's like, "You got to go away," and they're like, "But why can you do it?" And they're flapping their like little bat wings.
I am
and,
completely unfamiliar.
For all
with
of you,
anything
for
Batman.
all of you people who love comic books, you just got a great laugh out of that because you know exactly what I'm talking about. So.
But yeah, no, I thought, I'm hippy dippy. I'm leaning
No, I
into
actually,
this new
I actually love
relaxed
that outfit.
lifestyle.
And you know what? It actually reminds me of.
Oh, when we went, I know exactly what you're about to say. I forgot
It
about that.
reminds me, we got invited to go to a race, and one of the things, and we traveled to this race.
So, tell them what kind of race it is.
Well, see, that's the thing that we
Okay.
did. It was car racing.
We didn't know.
right?
I thought it was gonna be like NASCAR.
like NASCAR.
You know what I mean?
And so we actually show up, and it's actually dirt track racing. So the cars go around, and the track's actually made of dirt.
Yeah.
And so,
And I have white on
he
underneath
told us,
my poncho.
And so she was wearing this poncho,
And I had wedges on, and we're walking up like bleacher. Like
people
I
are
thought,
looking at us like these two are dressed like they're going to the opera.
I thought it was like you had seats like you would at like a professional football game or something like that,
Yeah.
where you like go to the stands and sit down. No, you're walking up bleachers that are like an inch wide. I'm like in heels, and the whole place. I mean, I don't want to say anybody's a redneck. They're not rednecks, but it just people were like out in the country ready to like get
they
dirty.
were country folk.
Yeah,
they were racing folk.
And like I was walking up these bleachers, and I swear, like if there was like newscast of like the bleachers at the time, like 100 people were like like turn their heads.
I looked up because
and
you were
look.
dressed up.
Yeah.
And what was funny is that we were sitting there, and my buddy's like, "Hey, yeah, here, use this, and you can cover your fries. Otherwise, your fries will look
Get
like
dirt on 'em.
They get dirt on
Like
them
people
'cause
are
the dirt's
eating
in the
food.
air, and the cars are just racing around, and you don't feel it, but then you start feeling sooty as the race goes on. And
It's like, how you feel
like
salty,
opening it up,
like after you're on the beach,
Yes,
your skin
that's
gets like
kinda what it
salty,
was.
but it was dirt
Yeah.
instead.
Anyway, so your outfit is.
I know the
is
fact
very
that my
close.
poncho survived that. Now that you're remembering,
Yeah, that was you know what? It's so fun, those memories. And we did have a great time because we had
Yeah, we were
good
with
friends
Will.
and,
Oh yeah, oops, there goes a name drop. Wow.
yeah,
I'm
so
really not paying
so
attention.
Will, we had a great time there. The fries were a little dirty, but
I know. It's like just don't. Even, no, that was great.
I don't know.
I love
So,
French
anyways,
fries.
today we're kind of continuing. We're on week 2, following up on what we talked about last week, which was you had put your notice in, and
Yeah.
you have
Still planning the future.
1 week left.
I do.
You have this coming week. And you'll be officially jobless. And so we're going to be going through that transition. We're going to be talking about it. But one of the topics that came up as we're transitioning through this program was really healthcare.
I know. And it's, I do. I have 1 week left, and it's very bittersweet. I actually just recently went to an industry conference because it was in the state of Florida. So it was a great opportunity where a bunch of people I've worked with over the course of 7 years at other companies. This industry is very small and niche. So everybody knows everybody. And I've become really great friends with some of the people. So it certainly wasn't a goodbye, but it was really amazing to see them and just share a lot of stories from the past. But, as I've come back, it's like, a lot of because both the industry, I have a very externally facing position in the company. And so it's a lot of notification to make sure that a company is in a really great place when you leave. Like I'm always the type of person that wants to make sure all of the ducks are in the row. So no one's feeling the stress or the pressure with a gap. And so hopefully there won't be a gap at all based on some of the things that we've put in place during this transitionary period. But anyway, one of the things that's really starting to freak me out as we go through the paperwork is health insurance.
And just so to kind of set up, I have health insurance through my company, and then you have health insurance through your company.
That's always how it's been, because when health insurance is so insane.
It's crazy the way these things are set up.
So and I'm probably just making up numbers here, but about close to it, you get a certain amount of money you're taken out of your paycheck if your company's covering it every 2 weeks, when you get paid. And it was okay, for me, it was under $100 for my own plan.
Because it's an individual.
It's an individual.
The company,
yes.
their employees, they're
paying the majority of the premium, which is very,
premium.
very nice. I'm thankful for that. And then when you were transitioning positions a year ago or something like that, a while back, more than that, we were going to add you to my policy because that was just going to be what felt easiest. And for an employee and spouse, it went from under $100 to over $900 per paycheck.
Yes.
And it was holy cannoli, that's huge. So we started having you look into your own programs, and now you're covered by the company anyway. But
it was really scary because when I had actually transitioned from a company and I was building and stepping into my own company, I had a Cobra option, but it was kind of you know what? Cobra was so expensive. And because I walked away from a paycheck and was building my own venture, I didn't necessarily have that extra money. I needed to kind of budget for my familiar.
Also, ill-advisable. Don't quit your job without another job, and don't quit your job and not get health insurance.
100%.
Don't actually listen to us. No, I'm kidding. But and health insurance is super important because while I would consider us both incredibly young and healthy, you never know what life. You are young, sweetie. You never know what life is going to throw at you. And we've actually, we're very thankful to be healthy and happy today, but we've had a wild ride when it comes to health issues the last couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, and not to get too personal, but I'll plug my book.
Yeah.
But I actually had an issue with my colon.
Experience?
Yeah, my experience is we were celebrating Easter a couple of years ago, and the day after Easter, my colon ruptured, and I went to the hospital. It took me 23 days to get out. I wrote a book about it, about positivity and staying positive through that. But the thing is, I had health insurance. And during that point in time, our deductible was $10,000. We ended up coming out of pocket. I ended up coming out of pocket $10,000 for that.
Is your max
and it did
out of
cover.
pocket?
That was my max out of pocket, and it did cover, what was a $387,000 bill.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, he had major surgery. He went septic. He almost died. It was very scary, and we're incredibly thankful that he's okay. But what's crazy is he was in the hospital anyway. The surgery would have happened anyway. And thank goodness he's okay. But what's really crazy is families and people are still responsible for medical bills. And it's just one of those things where we've always been we need to make sure we're protected when it comes to medical, and we're protected when it comes to our assets, which is via life insurance. And so I think there's two, because you don't ever know what's going to happen.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Certainly, not only is someone going to be in a horrible situation where they have to mourn the loss of somebody that they love, but it's even worse if you're in that situation and all of a sudden it becomes this massive financial burden. Or, even because I'm so plugged into the real estate industry, it's some people don't have a living will, or they don't have a will in general. They don't have a trust, and shit gets stuck in probate, and it becomes an absolute nightmare for where real estate's going to go. So health insurance is very important. We've seen how scary and how expensive it could have been.
Right.
And so I'm transitioning out, and it's one of those things that's crazy. It's I already have almost paid my max out of pocket this year. And
this is where we're caught up in our discussion.
Where it's crazy because I could get Cobra, which, keeps you on the same plan.
The same plan.
And you're then responsible for the premium. So that could be insane,
Yep.
Well, or I can look at like, okay, for the couple of things that I might get in the next month or whatever, what's the max out of pocket? Or what is it to add me to your plan as a spouse?
Exactly. Because what we don't want to lose the fact that we put in money into the system this year,
Right.
but we're only in May. And so it's kind of like, holy cow, we still have half the year to go. Because I think your policy renewed at the beginning of the year. Most people are all kind of like on that
calendar
annual
year. Mm-hmm.
calendar year program. And what they do to make it so difficult is that to add someone to a policy, there has to be those life-changing events.
Exactly.
And
Which
they make it
is
so difficult.
Which is marriage, divorce, kids, or death.
Yeah. Is there anything else other than those? I
don't
mean, it's
think so.
very, I think maybe they make some exceptions for a few things, but I mean, it's really just those few items.
Which are
that
like major.
those
yeah.
are major.
Major
and
things.
when we have here like a job transition or loss or a loss,
I wonder
insurance,
if you move to a different state. You know what? I don't know if that would. Because I'm just thinking sometimes you could be on an HMO versus a PPO, and
that's true. If depending on the fact that we are in Florida,
if you move out
and so we have
of-
Florida,
Right.
Actually, we just switched to United Health, and so I'm not going to comment on how good or bad any of these are. I think they all.
this is not a commercial for
This
the
is not,
insurance
yeah,
company.
we are definitely. I mean, I think their goal in life is to make insurance as difficult and hard as possible, and just take
To
money.
get any money back, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the
And then
pharmaceutical
fight you on
industry
it.
is insane.
I will tell you, like, one of the things that I've always taken advantage of, and I'm a firm believer in, is cash pay.
Yeah.
I've always been a huge fan of catastrophic life insurance policies that really took care of the big stuff, and then going in and paying it. Matter of fact, I think it was last year. We remember the MRI. We were getting an MRI, and it was like cash pay was like $400, and then insurance payment to deductible was like $1,200.
Yeah.
But it was like it literally was 30% of the cost just to come out of pocket, and so if you're able to do cash pay, the downside is it doesn't go to your deductible, so that always stinks. But if you're really looking at it, insurance as more of a catastrophic thing, to take care of yourself can actually be definitely less expensive.
Well, and that's what's so scary for me. I mean, it depends. We've talked about before how you take risks in business and you're always easy in being like, I'm going to spend money to make money. And I feel like I'm always a little bit more conservative when it comes to spending money, when it comes to, health and protection. And you're like catastrophic plan. Well, that's what's crazy for me is I've actually always paid the biggest premiums to have like the best possible health insurance because I've just seen too many things in my life, that have scared me. And I don't want to be in one of those positions where I wouldn't have coverage. So you can sit there all day long and be like,
So you're saying I'm a cowboy,
yeah,
and I'm going to
it's
ride
like,
off into the sunset.
you are riding off into the sunset. Yippee-ki-yay. But I was just going to say, like, if I did the math, anticipating even worst case scenario, like, oh, we might need a couple of like scans this year. We might need whatever, what would those cash costs be versus whether it was my premium via Cobra or you're adding me as a spouse and what that cost would be in it for our family. Chances are you could look at the cash pay and be like, that would be less. But if something big happened, then you're screwed.
You're right.
So.
I mean, and that's one of those things that's personal. And what's interesting when it comes into kind of our philosophy of budget banking is that we only really look at the money that comes in after your paycheck's done. And when you receive your paycheck, and
Right.
typically that money has already been taxed. That money you've already set aside to 401ks, and you've also contributed to your health insurance. So we typically do not put health insurance into any budgets because it's already, it's kind of like pre-tax dollars.
Right, because we're looking at take home, which is how we determine how we're going to live our life.
Yes.
But that was part of it. I was leaving the job and we looked at all of our different budgets and we talked about, okay, what would I need to put in from savings to pay the bills? And one thing we really didn't take into account for was the addition of health insurance.
Right.
And I mean, it could go from, that's an extra $500 to $1,000 depending on your plan.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Every month it is so expensive. So,
yeah. So, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We looked at our budgets and we were like, oh, this is what we need to satisfy that. And we totally overlooked. And by the way, we knew that there wasn't going to be a contribution to 401k. Like we knew that was not going to happen, and that we were going to go through a period of time where we were not going to be necessarily investing during that transition period. But we totally forgot to take into account the fact that we weren't going to have insurance. So just like a lot of our listeners are out there and they're like, I got to get insurance, I got to do that. Like we're doing the same thing. Like we're going through the process and trying to figure out what makes the most sense. Is Cobra the most sense and we're going to save that? Or is it getting added to my company policy and being added as a spouse?
Yeah.
And does that make the most sense? And so I'm actually have turned that over to you to figure out. I'm like, help, please.
Next week's agenda. Right now, I'm just dreaming of the weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend, and so
before you talk about Memorial Day weekend, I want to piggyback one more thing that a lot of people don't know.
I'll halt my dreams.
If you halt your halt your dreams on Memorial Day weekend and getting away.
Excited,
like you're so excited about getting away.
I
know. A lot of people don't know this, but insurance premiums, when they're paid. Let's say that you end work on the 5th of the month. Your insurance is actually most likely
this is
going
important
to carry
talk about.
to the end of the month.
Yes, if it's a prorated insurance policy where the premium's been paid by the company, if the company, I mean,
There's a lot of caveats.
I was going to say, I used to think that it was required of the company to continue insurance to the last day of the month on the month that you leave, whether it's by choice or by the company's choice, that your coverage would carry out. There are some companies where I have heard that insurance ends the day that you leave the company or you're let go, which is kind of insane. And there's other companies that let somebody go and they actually, as part of that severance package, allow for the health insurance to continue for 3-4 months as part of that benefit, which is obviously incredible. But there's, all kinds of different companies out there. Mm-hmm. These are great questions to ask when you're joining a company, if that's something that matters to you. But for the most part, unfortunately, the market's been tough, and where I've worked has gone through layoffs, as have a lot of different companies over the last few years. But that is something that the executives definitely take into account, is the timing of having to do something like that to try to ensure those employees are going to have as much runway as possible to figure out what their future
and
holds.
So if you're actually part of a like a RIF, like a reduction in force, or someone's going to let you go, talk to your employer and sit there and ask those questions and bring up like, hey, I would like to have my insurance carried for another 30 days, 60 days, et cetera,
let them know that's more important to you.
And they
than
might
maybe
do the quick things, which is like, hey, just sign up for Crowbar. And be like, no, I want the current policy that I have and I want it to get paid out. And I think you'll be surprised, especially if you have a great relationship with employers. Employers don't necessarily want to lay employees off.
No,
so it's not if they're doing it, it's either the company's not doing well or et cetera. They want to make that offboarding process as easy as possible, unless they're in dire straits. But if you're working for a larger company, a lot of people don't realize there is an option to negotiate some of these items.
Yeah.
The pay part's going away, and some of these other items, because they can continue or they're under existing, they might be able to carry that on for you for a little bit of time.
Definitely. No, it's always worth having negotiations, and different things hold more or less value to different people. We talk about this all the time, whether you work at a company and your salary is the most important, or your health insurance. Maybe health insurance doesn't matter to you at all because you actually are getting your insurance covered by your spouse, or maybe you're still getting it covered by your parents. I mean, there's so many different things that you can look at to say, this part doesn't mean something to me, but maybe I could get a bonus. And that's, not even associated with leaving a company, but it's like when negotiating a package, let's lighten it up a little bit. When onboarding with a company, sometimes companies have equity programs and you're like, the equity means more to me than an increase in my salary over the years because I believe in what I'm doing and I'm going to put myself into this business for a larger payout later. Mm-hmm. So different people, again, risk and reward, choose to negotiate different things. But I think the point is have the conversations, make it known what does matter to you so your employer can be aware of that and do their best to take care of you.
I agree with everything that you said there. So with that, you had something to talk about.
I was dreaming about Memorial Day weekend. I was just saying.
I'm dreaming during the podcast. Did you know I was a singer?
Oh, not again.
I'm not going to do that. Sorry.
Absolutely. Now you have to.
No, I was going to say dreaming,
So for those of you who aren't catching
Who
the
watched
joke
last
right
week,
now,
I said I had a
last
radio
week
voice.
he said he had a radio voice. He absolutely does not. He creeped us all out, and so we were laughing about it. And so I was just shook when you said you were a singer.
I know. I did that just to be funny.
Did you know I was a singer?
You actually are an amazing singer. That is a fact. That is a fact.
But I am not going to sing about dreaming.
No. Join us at the karaoke bar next Tuesday.
I do love good karaoke.
Yeah, we do love a good karaoke night.
It's been a while. It's been a real long time.
Well, it was before COVID, and then
I know.
COVID kind of nixed the whole karaoke thing.
Oh, because people
Probably
didn't want
have
to
never
sing into
been.
microphones, but it
Yeah.
came back. It came back. The world is
We need to
back
find
together.
a good karaoke spot.
Well,
I mean, we know where they're at.
we know where it is. My go-to karaoke song is Weezer. Say It Ain't So.
I know.
It's
I don't
so
have a
good.
go-to. I feel like every song I just nail. I feel like people should just pick a song, and I'm just gonna like get up.
Now that I
but will
said
tell
my
you
song,
that.
I literally feel like I need to take the microphone and just go to town.
No, we're not going to do that. We can't afford to cut out 4 minutes of podcast. So no. So tell us about Memorial Day. I have no idea what you're about to say, by the way.
Nothing.
So,
I was just saying I'm very excited about it. We were talking about how next week I need to figure out all. You literally cut off my dream. It was not about to be a full transition. No, I was just next. It's a short week. My last week is a short week at work because it's a 3-day weekend, which is very nice, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to go to the lake with my parents and grill out and have a good time.
Yeah, so we get Monday off.
Yeah, and we get
celebrating
Monday
Memorial Day.
off, and then next week I'll have to figure all this stuff out.
And you're taking Friday off because Friday we're flying out to see my brother.
Yeah,
so
to
you have
North
a 3 day.
Carolina.
Your last
I have
week's
a 3-day
week.
week. Yes,
which is very nice.
yeah, definitely taking Friday off.
You're not it's like, hey,
My last day's Thursday.
okay. I feel like you're taking Friday off.
I am.
I don't know. So, we had that initial conversation last week where we basically announced and said, hey, you're leaving your position and we're going to go through this transition together. And we got a note in from just one of our listeners here. So I'm just going to kind of read what they said and let's kind of walk through kind of what they were thinking and kind of what our thoughts are on it, because it's a little bit different a situation, but something that's kind of a little bit aligned. So
Okay.
it's like my husband didn't quit, but I was let go 2 weeks ago. He was let go 2 weeks ago. He was making $80,000 and I'm only working part-time at 28. We have enough in our savings to pay for our mortgage, but after that, I'm worried. Is there anything we can do in our budget to get through it till he finds a new job? The stress of paying bills seems to be unbearable. Lisa. So, I think one of the things, when we talk about budgets and job loss, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago where we talked about just the impact and being ready. And so there's a few things that I like to do when something big happens or a negative happens in my life. And that is I like to celebrate.
Yeah, you like to go out to dinner.
I always like to go out to dinner. And the reason is a lot of people would sit there and they would shut down and clamp down funds. And I'm not saying that your dinner needs to be at Ruth Chris Steakhouse. But what it is, it's taking that negative and turning it to a positive.
Yes.
And sitting there and saying, there's an end here, but we're going to celebrate the birth of something that's new. And so I do it by going out on the town and say, okay, we're going to do that. And I would say that this could be good and bad. Like if I came home and just like, hey, we need to go to dinner tonight. Like you'd be like, oh no, did something bad happen? But the reality is that, you have these conversations and it's like, hey, let's go out and celebrate something new. And then the very next thing that I would actually take a look at is controlling what I always consider the biggest spend in a household, and it's food. And so the one thing that I would recommend to Lisa is immediately set up your food account and only look at that money and set up those budgets and make it realistic for the time period that you feel that you need to get through. And so when you're looking at your bank account, and I think that they were saying that they had a little bit over a month to be able to get through expenses and pay their mortgage. But then after that, they were going to be looking at, not getting on time. And the problem is that when you're looking for a new job, just because you start a job on Monday does not mean that you're going to get paid right away. You might be on a 2-week cycle. You might be 2 to 3 weeks out from actually getting that first amount of money in there. So the first thing I would set up is just getting food spending under control, eating at home, etc. And then the second would be rebuilding your house budget. and looking at the expenses that need to be done right away, and then putting all those reoccurring items in there. It's amazing how changing the temperature, it's really hot here in Florida right now. And our electric bill, even though we do like the monthly average, it tends to go up. So like even a good $80-$100 a month, your electric bill can jump up during the summertime. And so right now, if you're in a warm, climate, your electric bill is going to increase.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, a little bit out of control for that. But get those set up. Also, look at all those cable, internet, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc. Some of those you might have to actually put on a little bit of a suspension. What I would recommend you don't do is keep those and put them on credit cards. So if you are
Yes. Oh my gosh.
actually having all these items in your credit card bill and then you're paying it with cash out of your bank, you probably need to stop that as soon as possible. Because what happened is you're actually spending money that you don't have. And that's going to be... you're going to realize when the bill comes due and you don't have that money in your bank account to take care of it. And so those are the big two things that I would probably take a look at right away. I don't know. You're smiling at me. I feel like you got some hidden nugget of gem.
Well, no, I don't know. You were on a roll there for a minute, man. I mean, really great advice. And I'm being serious. I think first and foremost, it's funny because we are a little bit different. I love your positivity when I'm going through something. And also, I do feel like it's okay to recognize that like life is hard. Life is scary sometimes. Things happen. It's okay to sit in your feelings. It's okay to take a moment and just be like, what the fuck are we going to do? Like it is okay to have those moments, but don't sit there too long. So whereas he, I would say, is so positive that he might actually like ignore that there's anything to recognize, then it's like he wants to celebrate and move forward, and he's capable of doing that. In fact, men are in general. I think they're really good at like compartmentalizing things.
Yes.
But women sometimes need the time to go through something, to experience closure, to, have the empathy surrounding the situation, the support when you're scared. And so I think first and foremost, Lisa's the one whose husband got laid off, but she's also probably the one that's feeling very nervous about the situation.
So much stress.
And when you think about it, it's like a man wants to provide for his family. Like most men just have that intuition to want to be the provider. And I'm not saying men should be the provider. And I'm not saying I, as a woman, don't want to provide for myself. But I know a lot of men who take pride in the capability of being able to do so. And so as a wife, I'm more on the emotional side of things. Like make sure you're recognizing that your husband probably is feeling a little bit of a sense of failure, in being laid off and being in a situation where he can't provide for the family. So it is that time to really build him up and make sure he knows that paycheck wasn't the only thing that he offers to the family, because he's going to need that motivation to pick himself up and have that confidence to go and apply for other jobs or start something new. So I think
that's amazing advice. I mean, people need to be built up. And so during that period of time, it's not focusing on the failure. It's focusing on, hey, you know what? You're amazing. What can I do to help?
And helping them recognize all of the great things about them, because they're going to need to take that with them to go look for the job
and move forward.
And so I think that is the biggest thing. You're right. There is something to celebrate. And I was just telling my team, because I love my direct team very, very dearly. I've worked with them for years at the company, and this is a huge change. And it's the hardest part about the decision that I just made, is that I won't get to work with them every single day. And there's, a sense of fear. There's a little bit of a feeling of being lost and not knowing. I have been essentially overseeing the team. And it's funny because I've learned so much from them over the course of time. They've done so much for me, and they're motivated. And when we do brainstorm, it's like they're the ones with the brilliant ideas. They're incredible. But there's this sense of like, well, what's next, and what do we plan, and how do we do this? And it's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to participate, because you're capable of doing it on your own. And you'll figure, if I'm not going to be there, I can't be the one making the decisions about the future, because that's not my call to make. I want you to be in a great position, but you have to determine what is your bandwidth? What are you comfortable doing? What will motivate you? What do you want to do? So I gave some ideas But it's kind of, they're in that moment of sitting with it. And I think they're going to definitely do incredible things. And there is good. I keep telling them, I'm like, we're celebrating the fact that, this is going to be a change, but everyone will be better off for it. You can't always put your finger on why at the time or see through that, but I know it to be the case.
I think everything that you said is amazing. And you're very eloquent in your words and everything, but and at some point during that period of discussion, my mind instantly went to
hot dogs.
No, it went to Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
Oh my gosh.
And you were talking about positivity, and I'm thinking about the knight and his leg gets cut off and he's like, come back here, it's merely a flesh wound. And it's just how men are.
That's how you are.
Like,
yeah,
I'm like that. And then he cuts his arm off and he's got one arm and one leg and he's like, come back here, and the guy's like, dude, you can't fight. He's like, I have one arm, and it's like,
and that is a great mentality.
That is the positivity that that I try to embody, and a lot of people do, and if you maintain that outlook, like it doesn't matter what gets you down. I will tell you, when you have a spouse, and so if you have a significant other that's going through this, or family,
anyone, recognize it.
It is hard when you're that positive. Sometimes it's very, it's very hard for me to have empathy because the way I look on life is so positive. I look there and go, yeah, I don't have any arms, but it'll be okay. Mm-hmm. And you look at it and going, oh my gosh, but just acknowledge I don't have any arms.
Yeah,
and
sometimes I tell him he has to dig deep into his empathy bucket. But then because he has no empathy, I literally have to tell him, like, if I'm ever not feeling good or something and he says, are you okay? I have to be like, holy shit, thanks for asking. Like, that was really big of you.
Yeah, I dug in the empathy
bucket.
bucket.
And he's like, you're welcome.
I don't have it, by the way, I don't have an empathy
bucket at all.
I have an empathy symbol.
Yeah.
Thimble. Like a little teeny thing.
That's all that's in there.
I'm working to shot glass.
I know. And it's runneth. Sometimes he tells me, he's like, look, like the empathy bucket's runneth over. Like it's
runneth out.
You're right.
It's not my empathy bucket's never running over.
No.
I feel like we're Monty Python. I'd be like, ye come forth with the empathy bucket. Ye runneth over.
Gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, no, I have a lot of empathy. We actually did the Gallup strengths test on each other, and out of the 34 strengths, empathy was last on your list.
Yeah, it's last
and
on my
I'm pretty
list.
Sure mine was.
They put it on there as a courtesy.
It's so funny because the one that was last on my list is harmony, which anyone who knows me wouldn't be surprised that I don't shy away from conflict.
You do not shy away from conflict. I love that about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it creates a good conversation, unless it's a conversation with me. No, but what's so crazy is that there's it's our conflict is much different, because it's very short lived, and there's a lot of, we're both rational. We don't actually do a lot from the heart. We do a lot from the head.
Yeah.
And so we're blessed with that.
Yeah.
When you're unbalanced and someone's from the heart and someone's from the head, there's can be frustration.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they're dealing with different things, and so we're just very blessed in that.
I'm like a 2-second. I'm over it. Don't hold grudges. Move on. I can be crazy 1 minute and then the next minute be like, so are we gonna go out to dinner?
Are we going to dinner?
Isn't that still the plan? Yeah. French fries.
How much is in food account?
Hopefully enough lately. I know. No, one of the we didn't really dive into the details, but I do think that life planning is very important. So just to kind of wrap it all up, we talked a little bit about life insurance earlier, but one of the things that I also have been doing is getting with my financial advisor, who I've worked with for years, just to make sure that we're taking into account some of these bigger life changes for me. Yep. And the financial advisor is actually someone, because I have worked for a couple of different corporations at this point with 401ks, who has been able to roll in those traditional IRAs or 401ks all into one place. It's allowed for me to have additional investments over the years. And so it's really important for me to just stay aware of what's going on there. He helps look at life insurance policies to ensure that they're good and intact and would protect you in the end of the day.
And just to kind of piggyback on what you said, and this is kind of one of the big things about budget banking that I always say, and it's, if you have a significant other and you're budget banking with them, your finances really need to be transparent.
Yes.
And we talk about this all the time, which is, it's okay to have individual finances. There's nothing wrong with that. But what it really needs to be is like an open up and say, hey, this is where my plan is. This is where I'm going. These are our joint things. These are the things that are separate. And, there was actually
exactly what's in all of my accounts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name. It's one of the sharks on Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin, yeah.
He actually came out with a post last week, and it was, if you have joint bank accounts, you're dumb. And
really?
Yeah, like he went off on having independence and everything else. And it was very interesting seeing the comments because a lot of it was mixed bag, right? And he was saying when, life events happen, some people, they're not able to prepare or host or whatever. And I think a lot of what he was saying is we always pitch that you have combined and you have separate, and that's actually how you have harmony.
Exactly.
Because it's the togetherness where you're actually planning and you're putting your life
for
together.
your lifestyle.
And that's your lifestyle.
Yes.
And then having the separate gives you the independence to spend and do things.
It's the best of both worlds, which is why this is so brilliant, because it was so hard to get there. And I think both of us have lived the other extremes in both ways. All joint, all separate, some combined. So there's been plenty of experimentation in our own lives. And so I can understand where he's coming from. And to be honest, it probably comes from a little bit of a personal experience.
It probably comes from
he must not have had a great experience with joint accounts. And I concur. I, can agree with that to an extent. But this is a balance between the two where I do still have my independence. But this is paying for our lifestyle where we do have the joint accounts. And to your point, we're transparent about what some of those independent accounts are. Now, some people don't feel the need to do that. I don't understand that because, again, like if the intention is to be
it's
together.
Interesting because you say, oh, I don't understand that, but you came from the world of that. And so now when you sit there and you see all the benefits of the setup here, it's like one of those retrospective things.
Yeah.
Where like, I don't understand it. I don't even know why I did it that way before.
Exactly.
And I think it's just because we don't know better. Like most people are not taught this advice. And so if you're one of those people who didn't have parents that taught you, didn't learn anything in school. I mean, they don't teach anything hardly in school.
No, we were just with your cousin the other day, and it was like, if only they gave classes on like real world advice.
Yes, my cousin came in from Tennessee. We actually gave her a tour of the studio here and a copy of the book and just a kind of explaining everything. And she's like, oh my gosh, I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
And so we literally, kind of imparting some of that wisdom. I like to think it's wisdom to it, but it's really just based off a lot of experience and then understanding what the dynamic is. So it's not just about budgets. It's about creating a budget within a household where you have a symbiotic relationship that's just
you should get
healthy
with Kevin.
and happy.
I mean, he's a shark. Like maybe we should.
Well, he's a shark, so he doesn't realize that that he's wrong.
Oh gosh, now we're really.
It's so funny because I always said if I ever went to Shark Tank, I would want to do a deal with Kevin. I'm actually a huge Kevin fan.
I was gonna say, and when you go on Shark Tank, I do know that he actually. Well, I don't.
No, that's another story. Another story. Go visit one of our other channels.
I know.
And
I'm gonna need. We're gonna end. I'll fly away.
You're gonna fly away. Well, thank you so much for visiting us this week. We're looking forward to Memorial Day and just picking up, sharing what we did, how much money we spent, how empty our food account got to zero because of the drinks.
We've got the Bloody Mary bar is open this weekend from all of the we told them about the very expensive pickled vegetables.
The pickled vegetables that we talked about weeks and weeks ago.
Next week. Anyway, goodbye. Have a wonderful
weekend.
Goodbye,
everyone. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week.